Hello everyone and welcome to LS1 Discovery, a series of short videos by the LS1 team where we will cover some of the core functionality of LS1. My name is Andries Roux and I'm the product director for LS1.
Hi, my name is Heather from the LS1 team, and today I'll be showing you how to create an LS1 report from scratch. I've already opened up the Site Manager, which is the LS1 back office system, and I'm going to start by showing you the report we will be creating. So I navigate to Tools, View Report, and then I select the report we're going to be creating later. We've decided to show you how to create a report that compares sales from between months, over years, and stores. I know that in this database I have data since 2014, so I want to compare all the data I have. So I choose May 1st as my start date parameter, and I choose today as the end date parameter. I have two stores in this database, and I want to see data for both of them. I press View Report, and the report is generated. Like you can see, and I showed you before, we have the parameter section here at the top, where we choose the parameters for our report data. We have the header of the report, where we have the title of the report, and it also displays the date, which is good for printing and to know when the report was generated. We have the printed on date, we have the number of pages, and then we have the stores the report was generated for. Below we can see our actual data table. In this report we have data for 4 years, and we can expand and collapse the yearly data, so we can either see both stores and the total, or we can just see the total if we collapse the year. We can also see collapse and expand the quarters, so we can view the data the way we want it. This also has a feature, this report, where I've decided that if I only have data for one store, I hide the total column. So if we just pick one store and run the report again, we can see that we only have the results for Café Bleu. So this way we can compare sales for one store between years. The first thing we need to do to create a report is to create our SQL query. That is what I'm going to be showing you now. The first thing we need to do when creating a new report is to decide what data we want to display. The report uses a stored procedure to get the data for the report, and the heart of the stored procedure is the SQL query. To save time now, we're going to open up an SQL query that we've already created. We go to File, Open, and open the query file. As you can see in this query, we're returning the month of the creation of the transaction, the year when the transaction was created, the store name of the store where the transaction was created, and the amount including tax for the transaction. We do this by selecting from the RBO sales transaction table and the RBO transaction table to get the correct dates of the transaction, and then we select from the RBO store table to get the store name. It's always a good idea to run your transaction before adding it to the store procedure, so that's what we're now going to do. We press Execute to run our transaction, and as we can see, we get lots of data with month, year, store name, and amount information for the query. We're now going to close SQL Server Management Studio and move on to creating the query files. Now that we have our query, we need to create the report files. The reports in LS1 consist of two files. The report manifest file, which contains information about how to display the report in Site Manager, contains a unique GUID ID, it contains the name, the language, and the stored procedure for the report. We also need to create the report file itself. This is the part of the report that I showed you before, the header, the parameters, and the actual matrix with the report data. The first thing I'm going to do is create a new project in Visual Studio. I open Visual Studio. And from the Start menu, I select New Project. I choose a Windows Forms application project, and I'm going to call it LS1 Reports. Just going to copy it to the name as well. Okay, then I just press OK. Okay, now we've opened our new project. The first thing we're going to do is to copy in a template manifest file to the project folder. So we're going to minimize Visual Studio. We're going to open our project folder. Here we have the LS1 Reports project. And I'm going to create a report folder here for my report files. Let's call it report. And then I'm going to get my manifest template file. I'm going to copy it to the report folder, and I'm going to rename it to be reflective of the name of the report I'm going to create. So I'm going to call it comparison. Now we can reopen Visual Studio. We can close the form and we can view everything that is within the project. We include the report folder in the project. And here we have our template manifest file. What we need to add to the manifest file is a report ID. We can create a new GUID by pressing the link, and we'll be navigating to the GUID creation mechanism, and we can close it, copy the GUID, and then paste it here. I want to use a predefined GUID for this one, so I'm just going to copy it from my file and paste it here. I've also created a name for the report that I want to copy from a file and add it to the name. Then we have the description. This is the description that is displayed for the report in the Site Manager. So we can just write up this report, displays comparison between months. Okay, and we have it. Then we need to decide on the language ID of the report, and in this case we just want to use English, so we just use EN here. The context is something that we need to choose at this point. The context means that this decides where in the Site Manager the report is displayed. And we think that this would be beneficial to see this report in the report section, which should display all reports. And then we're also going to add the store section. We then need to define the stored procedure for the report. Our select query will go here, but before we do that, we need to decide on the parameters. Like I showed you, the parameters were the top part of the report where we selected the dates and the stores. So in this report, we want to use start date parameter and date parameter, stores ID parameter, and then we always need to include in the manifest file our data area ID parameter. We also need to decide on the name of the store procedure. And we will just call this store procedure store comparison, like this. And then we can just copy it to the other locations where we need to set the name. The top part here, it's just included so that if the stored procedure exists, it is dropped and recreated, because this is necessary when we're updating reports. So if we import a report that has the same GUID, it will update the report, and then we want the stored procedure to be dropped and recreated. Now we have the name of our stored procedure, and we have the parameters. I'm going to explain a little bit about the stores ID parameter, because the stores ID parameter is a multi-select parameter, like we saw when we looked at the report before. And for multi-select parameters, we need to declare an XML container for the IDs of the stores. So we declare doc_id_int, we create the doc ID and tell it which parameter it should be using, and then we need to delete it afterwards. So now I'm going to go and get my query from before, and I'm going to paste it into the stored procedure. I'm taking it from here and pasting it directly in here. But what I'm missing now is that I'm not using any of the parameters in my select query. I couldn't do that before, because when I was testing it, I needed to be able to run it in the SQL Server Management Studio, but now I can add the parameters that I need into the select query. I'm going to open up my file where I've already prepared this. The first thing I'm going to add is the join on the stores ID. So I copy this line in here, and what this does is that it joins the stores ID that I got from my parameter on the store ID I get from the transaction. The second thing I'm going to do is to add the parameters for the start date and end date, and the data area ID. I get them from here as well, and I add them here to the where clause of the select. So now I have all my parameters. I have the doc ID for the store. I have the data area ID here, which is comparing to the data ID, area ID of the transaction. I have the start date, where the transit date should be equal to or bigger than, and I have my end date, which the transit date should be smaller than. So now I have completed creating my stored procedure. The next thing we need to do is to add the stored procedure to the database to be able to create the dataset for our report file. I'm going to save the manifest file. I'm going to copy the stored procedure from the manifest file to SQL Server Management Studio. I'm going to execute, and as you can see, the command was completed successfully. So now the stored procedure has been added to the database. I'm now going to close SQL Server Management Studio again, and I'm going to create the report file. I now go to Project, Add New Item, and here I select Reporting from the menu and the report result. I'm going to name my report file the same name as my report manifest file. I'm going to call it comparison. I now press add, and the wizard opens. I now have to connect to my dataset in my database. So I choose database from the menu here, choose database, press next, choose dataset, press next. And now I want to make a new connection to my database. My database server is just localhost. And I'm going to select from the names of database, the database I want to use, which is called ls. Okay. And then I press OK. I then press next, and I want to create a connection string that I can use later on. Press next again, and now the Visual Studio is retrieving the database information. The dataset I want to use is a stored procedure, so I just navigate down, and here is my stored procedure that I created before called spdb_store_comp. So I select that. The dataset name here does not matter, so I just keep the default. I press finish, and now the dataset properties window opens. Here, the dataset name is really important. The dataset name we provide here needs to be exactly the same name as our stored procedure. So we write store_com here. We can then continue creating our report. So we press next, and here we get the arrange fields window. We want the row group to be the month, and we want the year and the store name to be our column groups. The values we want to be displayed in the matrix are the net amounts, so we add them to values. We can now continue, and here we can choose the layout. We can decide whether we want the groups to be expandable and collapsible or not. And we can decide whether we want to show the subtotals and grand totals or not. In our case, we want to show the totals, and we want the groups to be expandable and collapsible. We then end by choosing a style, and in this case, we're just going to choose a generic style. And now we have our report in its simplest form. There are still a few things left before we can view the report in Site Manager. The first thing we want to do is to add the quarter group around the month group. What we do then is we choose the month column, we insert row, outside group above. We then go down to the row group and select add parent group. We want to add the parent group based on an expression we've already created. So I'm going to open up the expression window, and then I'm going to go get my expression. And when we paste in the expression, we can see that we want, if the month value is below 4, we want it to quarter 1, if it's below 7 to quarter 2, and etc. We press OK to save. We select add group header, and then we press OK. So now we have our expression here. We do not want the extra column because we don't need it, so we're going to delete the column, and then we're going to add the expression again here for the quarter labels to be displayed correctly. And we press OK again. We also want to change the month display because the months are now displayed as numbers. So we go in here and choose expression, and we go get our expression for the month. So now the names of the months will be displayed instead of the numbers. Okay, the next thing is to add the parameters. We had the parameters in our manifest file before. These were the parameters, and now we need to add them to the report file. So we go into parameters, add parameters. We start by entering our start date. The data type should be date time, and we press OK. We then add our end date parameter. That's also date time. And then we need to add our stores ID parameter. But what we're going to do, instead of adding stores ID, we're going to add stores name, because each ID parameter also has a name parameter attached to it that we can use to display the name instead of the ID. We're just going to leave the data type as text and allow blank value and allow multiple values. We do not need to add the data area ID at this point. Now the only thing left to do is to view the language parameter for the report. We press outside of the report area to get the report properties. We then go to language and we select the language we want. In this case, we want English GB. We now save the report and go on to the site manager to import it. We select Manage Reports, where we are. We select the plus, and we select the report files we just created. I just navigated to the Visual Studio project I created and the report folder. So now I open the report manifest file. I open the report file and I press OK. Since I had already imported this report to let you view it before, I just say yes because I want to override it. And now it's here, and I can go to View Report and view it. If we insert the same data as before, the same start date, May 1st, and we press View Report, we now have a very crude table with expandable option for the year. But like you can see, there's no formatting on the numbers, we have no formatting on the table itself, and we're missing the header. So now I'm going to show you how this report looks when we've finished with all the formatting. So I open up the report. We have the same report manifest file as for the other one, but the report file is a little bit different. I've added the header section and added I've added the title and the dates to the header. I've added the store expression, and I've added some formatting to the numbers and totals for our table, but it's still in the end the same table as we were viewing before. There's one thing I wanted to show you because as we remember from the original report, we were able to expand and collapse the quarters. How we do this is that we set on the month group, we set a property for visibility. So we say that when the report is initially run, we want to show it, so we want the months to be expanded, but we can toggle the display using report item text box 36. And report item text box 36 is this one. And if we press it, we can see it over here, which item this is. So by that, we're telling the report that you can toggle the months by pressing on the quarters. I've also changed the number formatting for the number cells. So if I right click and do text box properties, you can see I've changed it to number and then use regional formatting and 2 decimal places and use thousand separators. You can of course set this any way you want, but this makes the report numbers look nice. Here you can also select how to align your report numbers. I usually align the numbers to the right, and usually we align the labels to the left. Next, I'm going to show you a few more reports that we've created. So if I go to View Report, Item Sales per Item, I'm going to show you a little bit about the other features that we have in the reports. I'm going to choose the period from January 1st to 2017, December 31st, both stores, and View Report. And as we can see here, we get a list of sold items for this period. What we can do in this report is to sort the columns. So I've added dynamic sorting to all the columns, and that way we can click the header and sort. I'm going back to Visual Studio to show you how this is done. I have the sales report here. I'm going to open up the report file, and if I right click and do text box properties, we can see that we have this option here, interactive sorting, and I can enable interactive sorting on this text box. I want to sort the detail rows, and I want it sorted by item name. So this is how you add sorting to the headers of the columns. I'm going to show you one more thing we can do, and that is using the enum parameters. Enum parameters are dynamic parameters that you can add to the manifest file and use for controlling your output. So here we have 3 enum parameters. We're going to choose a few here. Again, we're going to choose the period for 2017 from January 1st to December 31st. We've selected quantity, we've selected 10, number of sales, and top. And we do View Report. And we get the top sales for 2017 based on quantity. So we sold 9,000 cups of coffee. If we want more data, we can increase the number of sales to 25, and then we get the 25 top items for 2017. And we can see it's a lot of coffee and a little bit of other things. So if we go back to Visual Studio, I'm going to show you how we have the top sales here, yeah. And we're going to include it in the project, and we're going to open it up. And here we can see in the report manifest file for top sales that we have added these enums here. And the enums state what the label should be and what the value should be. And then if we go back to the report file, we can see, for example, for the quantity that we have column visibility, and we are basing the column visibility of the quantity column on the quantity enum. So if the quantity enum is true, then we display the column. If the quantity enum is is false, then we do not display the column. So this is how enums can be used. They can both be used in the report itself or the SQL query in the stored procedure. This is the conclusion to my demonstration today. I hope you all benefited from it, and we're going to be adding all the data from this presentation, both the reports we created and the table schema from LS1 to the partner portal where you can download it and view it further. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you for viewing this demonstration video. For more LS1 product videos, please visit YouTube and type in LS1 tutorials. You can also visit our website, lsretail.com, and from products you can navigate to LS1 to find more information about the product and also purchase information. A free trial is also available for those interested. Thank you again, and we'd like to hear from you very soon.